Welcome to the Forgotten Narrator. Alright, let's talk about one of the most enigmatic figures in Warhammer 40k, the Primarch Omegon. A ghost in the shadows, a name whispered in secrecy, and possibly the last true master of deception still lurking in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. Unlike his more famous brothers, Omegon wasn't just a warrior, a general, or even a conqueror. He was a paradox, an illusion, and perhaps the greatest long-game strategist the galaxy has ever seen. And the scariest part? No one truly knows his fate. For years, theories have swirled about whether Omegon died, disappeared, or even still walks among us, shaping the future of the galaxy in ways we can't even begin to understand. Was he the real leader of the Alpha Legion all along? Is he the true last Alpharius, orchestrating schemes so vast that even the High Lords of Terra or the War Master of Chaos himself remain oblivious? Or is he something even more terrifying, an unseen force that has moved beyond the confines of his former legion, still manipulating events from the deepest shadows? To answer that, we have to unravel one of the most convoluted, mysterious, and outright mind-bending stories in all of 40k lore. Because if Omegon is still alive, then nothing we think we know about the Imperium, chaos, or even the future of the galaxy is truly certain. Omegon's story can't be told without talking about Alpharius because in many ways, they were one and the same. Or at least, that's what they wanted everyone to believe. The Alpha Legion was unique from the very beginning, and it all started with the strangest anomaly among the Primarchs, the existence of twins. Unlike the other sons of the Emperor, Alpharius and Omegon weren't just similar in ideology or tactics, they were physically identical, to the point where even those closest to them couldn't always tell them apart. This wasn't just a quirk, it was the foundation of their entire philosophy. While the other Primarchs built their legions in their own image, leading with the force of their personalities, Alpharius and Omegon created something different. The Alpha Legion wasn't about individual glory or honor. It was about deception, about making the enemy question everything they thought they knew. Their warriors would claim to be Alpharius, reinforcing the idea that their Primarch was omnipresent, unkillable, and beyond the grasp of traditional warfare. But within that illusion, the real power dynamic was at play. Alpharius and Omegon weren't just leaders, they were a system, an interwoven network of misdirection and control. And that's where the questions about Omegon's fate get interesting. For most of the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, the twin Primarchs operated as a singular entity, their roles deliberately blurred. Some accounts even suggest that Omegon acted as Alpharius' second-in-command, his quiet counterpart, the one who stayed deeper in the shadows, while Alpharius played the visible role of the Legion's leader. If true, this means that Omegon was always positioned to take over if something happened to Alpharius, and something did happen. During the scouring of the Alpha Legion, it said that Dorn personally killed Alpharius. But here's the problem. Nobody can truly confirm if the dead Primarch was really Alpharius or if it was actually Omegon. The two were so identical, so committed to their deception, that even death couldn't give a definitive answer. Some sources claim that Alpharius was indeed the one who fell, leaving Omegon to inherit the fragmented legion. Others argue the opposite, that Alpharius survived and let his death serve as another layer of misdirection. But if we assume that Alpharius was the one who perished, then Omegon became the sole master of the Alpha Legion. This is where his role as the key figure in the Legion's survival becomes more than just a theory. Unlike his more direct and confrontational twin, Omegon was rumored to be the true mastermind, the one who worked in the deep layers of the Legion's intelligence network. If Alpharius had been the face of the Alpha Legion, then Omegon was the ghost in the system, the contingency plan that ensured the Legion could survive even if its leader fell. And here's the real kicker. Some theories suggest that Omegon wasn't just a backup leader, but the real one all along. What if Alpharius had always been the decoy, the distraction, while Omegon pulled the strings from the beginning? It would explain why the Alpha Legion continued to operate in the same way long after Alpharius' supposed death. It would also make sense of certain accounts that describe Omegon as the more reserved, calculating of the two, the one who was less attached to the theatrics of being a Primarch and more invested in the long game. Even if we assume that Omegon only took over after Alpharius' fall, that still leaves us with a chilling thought. He was the last true leader of the Alpha Legion, the only one who could have directed their movements in the centuries that followed. The galaxy believed the Alpha Legion was broken, splintered into rogue cells without a singular purpose. But what if that was exactly what Omegon wanted everyone to think? It's possible that he deliberately scattered his legion, ensuring that no single target could be identified as the true heart of their operations. If so, then every act of Alpha Legion subterfuge in the millennia since could be traced back to him, operating unseen, manipulating events in ways even the most paranoid inquisitors wouldn't suspect. And if that's the case, then his survival isn't just a possibility, it's a terrifying inevitability. Alpharius' death is one of the most debated events in Warhammer 40k history, and for good reason. It doesn't make sense. The official account, at least according to the Imperium, claims that Dorn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists, personally killed Alpharius in a brutal duel aboard a void station. But the problem with any official record when it comes to the Alpha Legion is that nothing is ever what it seems. Was it really Alpharius who died that day? Could it have been Omegon instead? Or, perhaps the most unsettling possibility, was the entire thing just another layer of deception? The first issue is the sheer improbability of Alpharius being taken down so easily. Yes, Dorn was a powerful warrior, and yes, he was a Primarch, but Alpharius was no fool. He specialized in asymmetrical warfare, misdirection, and deception, on a level that made even the most cunning of his brothers look predictable. The idea that he would allow himself to be trapped in a straightforward battle against one of the most physically formidable Primarchs in the Imperium is bizarre. The Alpha Legion doesn't engage in fights it doesn't control. If Alpharius was there, he was there because he chose to be. But what if it wasn't Alpharius? What if it was Omegon who faced Dorn? Or even just another high-ranking Alpha Legionnaire, someone conditioned and modified to be Alpharius? This isn't speculation. There's precedent for it. The Legion thrived on the idea that Alpharius was a symbol, not a singular person. Countless times before, they had used doubles, misinformation, and elaborate setups to convince enemies that they had captured, killed, or unmasked their elusive leader. Why should this time be any different? Some sources claim that before his supposed death, Alpharius had already begun distancing himself from direct leadership, leaving operations to his twin. If that's the case, then it's entirely possible that the Primarch Dorn killed was actually Omegon. This raises even more questions. Did Alpharius send his brother to die in his place as part of a larger scheme? Or did Omegon take his twin's role willingly, allowing himself to be sacrificed to keep the Alpha Legion's true power intact? The thought of it is disturbing, but completely in line with how they operated. And then there's the possibility that neither of them died that day. What if Dorn was played? The Imperial Fists are famous for their rigid black and white thinking. To Dorn, if he killed Alpharius, mission accomplished. But what if that was exactly what the Alpha Legion wanted him to think? By letting the Imperium believe their Primarch was dead, the Legion would gain an advantage they had never had before. Complete freedom from expectation. No longer hunted as a unified force, no longer a primary target, they could fragment, go underground, and work their mischief without interference. It's worth noting that other accounts place Alpharius' death at entirely different points in history, conflicting with the Dorn duel entirely. Some records suggest that he was still active deep into the heresy, coordinating Legion operations long after he was supposedly slain. Others imply that he, or at least someone claiming to be him, continued to act even centuries later, manipulating events from the shadows. If any of these are true, then the Dorn duel was, at best, a misdirection and at worst, outright Imperial propaganda. And if Alpharius survived, then what about Omegon? If one twin lived while the other died, how would that have changed the course of the Legion? Would Omegon, always the quieter and more secretive of the two, have taken on a new role, something even deeper in the shadows? Or would he have abandoned the Legion entirely, disappearing into the wider galaxy to pursue some unfathomable long-term objective? Some fans believe that the Alpha Legion's continued presence in the modern era is proof that at least one of the twins survived. The way the Legion operates, the precision of their infiltrations, the scope of their intelligence network, it all suggests the hand of a guiding intelligence, something more than just scattered warbands of operatives. If Alpharius died, then maybe Omegon is the one still pulling the strings. And if the Dorn duel was staged, then maybe the Alpha Legion is still being led by not one, but two living Primarchs, hiding in plain sight. The truth is, we may never get a definitive answer. That's the nature of the Alpha Legion. They control the narrative, and they decide what's real. But if one thing is certain, it's that the moment you think you understand what happened to Alpharius and Omegon, you've already been deceived. The Horus heresy shattered the galaxy, but for the Alpha Legion, it was something else entirely. A perfect opportunity. While the other traitor legions either fled into the Eye of Terror or were relentlessly hunted by the Imperium, the Alpha Legion did something only they could pull off. They vanished. No grand last stands, no desperate retreats. One day, they were a cohesive force fighting in the name of Horus, and the next, they dissolved into 1,000 different cells, spreading like a virus throughout the galaxy. And at the heart of this transformation, if he was still alive, was Omegon. The end of the heresy should have been the death blow for the Alpha Legion. They had lost their supposed leader, whether it was Alpharius or Omegon, or both, or neither, depending on which version of the story you believe. The Imperium expected them to either self-destruct in the absence of a guiding Primarch, or throw in their lot with chaos like the rest of their traitorous brothers. But that's not what happened. Instead, the Alpha Legion adapted, becoming something even more insidious, more unpredictable, more dangerous. Unlike the other traitor legions, the Alpha Legion didn't descend into open worship of the dark gods. They didn't carve out a warlord's empire or seek revenge against the Imperium in grand apocalyptic battles. Instead, they became what they had always been, a decentralized, intelligence-driven force with no single point of failure. Some warbands continued to act like conventional Chaos Space Marines fighting in the Long War, but many others took a completely different path. They embedded themselves within Imperial society, infiltrating its power structures, subverting from within. If the Alpha Legion had a post-heresy strategy, it wasn't conquest, it was corruption. And this is where Omegon's possible role becomes crucial. If he survived the heresy, he would have been the last true Primarch still at the helm of the Legion. But the way the Alpha Legion evolved suggests that, rather than ruling over his forces like a warlord, he may have taken on a more abstract role. The Legion was no longer about centralized command. It became a system, a philosophy. The idea of a single leader giving direct orders went against everything the Alpha Legion had become. If Omegon was still out there, he wasn't leading from a throne. He was leading through doctrine, through whispered orders passed from agent to agent, through a vast network of cells that had no idea whether they were acting under his command or simply following a plan set in motion centuries ago. There are theories that Omegon went even further, abandoning his identity entirely. Some suggest that he became a faceless entity, operating under different names, guiding his legion not as a known leader, but as a myth, an unseen presence that no one could trace. Others argue that he might have faked his death, just as Alpharius supposedly did, stepping back completely and allowing the Legion to function without any Primarch at all. It would make sense. If your entire military doctrine is built on deception and misinformation, what better way to ensure your survival than by erasing yourself from history? What's particularly strange is that the Alpha Legion, despite all expectations, never fully collapsed. Other traitor legions splintered into warbands led by rival champions, but the Alpha Legion remained something different. Even fragmented, even with its cells acting independently, it retained a kind of eerie cohesion, as if there was still some invisible hand guiding its operations. Could that have been Omegon? Was he still shaping their objectives, influencing their long-term goals? If so, to what end? There are conflicting accounts of what the Alpha Legion actually wants in the modern era. Some groups clearly serve chaos, but others appear to be operating on an entirely different agenda, one that doesn't align with the standard goals of the ruinous powers. This has led to one of the most mind-blowing theories about Omegon's role post-heresy, that he turned against chaos entirely. Some believe that he saw the true horror of what chaos was becoming and chose to position his legion as the ultimate double agents, using their infiltration skills to work against both chaos and the Imperium, destabilizing both sides in a long-term game that only he could fully understand. This would explain why the Alpha Legion has been involved in operations that, at times, seem to help the Imperium rather than hinder it. Instances where they have disrupted chaos cults, assassinated warlords who are growing too powerful, or even manipulated Imperial forces into achieving objectives that weakened chaos rather than strengthened it. Could this all be part of some massive, centuries-spanning strategy orchestrated by Omegon? If he was still alive after the heresy, then he had time, more than any other Primarch, to refine and execute a plan so intricate that neither the Imperium nor chaos could fully grasp it. The biggest question, of course, is whether the Alpha Legion needs Omegon at all anymore. If he is still out there, is he an active leader, or has the Legion evolved beyond the need for a Primarch? If his legacy is that of a hidden architect, then maybe his greatest achievement was ensuring that his Legion could continue without him. Maybe Omegon, the last true Alpharius, is still manipulating the galaxy. Or maybe the greatest trick he ever pulled was making us believe he still had to. If Alpharius truly died, whether at the hands of Dorn or in some other, more shadowy manner, then what happened to Omegon? Did he step up and take direct control of the Alpha Legion, or did he disappear into the very system of deception that he and his twin had spent their lives perfecting? The answer to this question isn't just a matter of historical curiosity. It fundamentally changes how we understand the Alpha Legion's continued existence in the 41st millennium. At first glance, it would make sense for Omegon to take command. The Alpha Legion, for all its decentralized nature, still had a need for leadership, for someone who could set the grand strategy even if individual cells operated with autonomy. If Alpharius was gone, who better to step in than the one person who truly understood the Legion's philosophy, its hidden plans, its deeper purpose? Some theories suggest that Omegon simply became Alpharius, continuing the ruse as if nothing had changed. Given that no one could tell the twins apart, it wouldn't have been difficult. If the Legion believed their Primarch still lived, then morale remained intact. The illusion of Alpharius's immortality would be reinforced, and the Alpha Legion's enemies would be left in the dark, never truly knowing if they had struck a fatal blow. But there's another, even more fascinating possibility. What if Omegon didn't take command at all? What if he let go of the Legion entirely, allowing it to function without a central figurehead? This idea aligns perfectly with the Alpha Legion's core ideology. They had never been like the other legions, where everything revolved around their Primarch's will. The Alpha Legion was built to be independent, self-sustaining, and most of all, adaptable. If Omegon stepped back, whether by necessity or by design, it could have been the ultimate test of the Legion's ability to function as a true collective intelligence. There are hints in the lore that suggest this might be exactly what happened. The Alpha Legion of the post-heresy era doesn't act like an army following the direct orders of a singular leader. Instead, they operate like a vast, interconnected web of agents, each following a general doctrine, but with no clear central authority. Could this be the result of Omegon's influence? Maybe he realized that the best way to ensure the Legion's survival was to remove himself from the equation entirely. If there was no one leader to kill, no throne to usurp, then the Alpha Legion could never truly be destroyed. Some fans take this theory even further, suggesting that Omegon didn't just step back, he vanished completely. Perhaps he saw the destruction that had come to the other Primarchs, both loyalist and traitor alike, and decided that his best move was to simply disappear. If so, where did he go? Some believe that he abandoned the Alpha Legion and went deep into Imperial space, assuming a new identity and working from within. Others argue that he might have infiltrated the Inquisition, the Adeptus Mechanicus, or even the High Lords of Terra themselves, manipulating the Imperium from the highest levels. And then there's the darker theory that he didn't just abandon the Legion, but abandoned everything, choosing a life outside the war entirely, becoming a ghost in the galaxy. But there's also a possibility that's far more unsettling. What if Omegon never intended to rule? What if his real plan was something much grander, something that we still don't fully understand? The Alpha Legion was always playing a different game than the rest of the legions. While Horus and his followers sought open rebellion, the Alpha Legion operated on a completely different wavelength. Their true motives have always been shrouded in mystery, and it's entirely possible that whatever grand strategy they had in motion didn't rely on a Primarch's direct leadership at all. Maybe Omegon saw himself not as a ruler, but as an architect of something bigger, something that wouldn't be completed in his lifetime, or even in the next 10,000 years. If that's the case, then his disappearance wasn't an abdication of power. It was the final move in a plan that's still unfolding right now. So, did Omegon take control of the Legion? Maybe, maybe not. But if he didn't, it wasn't because he failed, it was because he didn't need to. And that thought is far more terrifying than the idea of him simply sitting on a throne somewhere, giving orders. If Omegon is still out there, then the real question isn't where he is. It's what he's waiting for. If Omegon truly survived past the Horus heresy, then the logical question is, where is he now? The galaxy of the 41st millennium is an absolute nightmare of war, paranoia, and endless betrayals, a perfect breeding ground for someone like him to thrive. The Alpha Legion may be fragmented, but their influence has never faded. And every now and then, strange events happen. Battles that shouldn't have been won, assassinations that make no sense, entire war zones where the enemy's movements are too coordinated, too precise, as if guided by an unseen hand. Could these be the fingerprints of Omegon, still manipulating events from the shadows? One of the biggest arguments for his continued existence is the sheer consistency of the Alpha Legion's methods. Unlike other traitor legions, which have splintered into countless warbands led by various champions, the Alpha Legion still feels like a singular entity. Even when its cells operate independently, there's an eerie sense of coordination. Their strategies remain just as sophisticated as they were during the Great Crusade. They still infiltrate Imperial institutions at the highest levels, still execute operations that seem to serve no immediate purpose, but clearly fit into some grander, long-term scheme. That kind of continuity suggests leadership, someone guiding them. And if there's one figure in the Legion's history who could maintain such a hidden presence, it's Omegon. Then there are the more direct anomalies, the times when someone claiming to be Alpharius has appeared throughout history. In multiple engagements, Imperial forces have fought against warlords, commanders, or even entire Alpha Legion cells led by an individual who claims to be Alpharius. And while that could be dismissed as standard Legion deception, some of these figures have demonstrated a level of knowledge, strategic brilliance, and even physical presence that makes it hard to ignore the possibility that at least one of them could be real. One particularly infamous case happened during the Macarian Crusade, where an Alpha Legion warlord emerged, displaying tactics so sophisticated that even Lord Solar Macarius, the greatest Imperial general since the Great Crusade, struggled to counter them. The warlord was only known as Alpharius, and despite multiple attempts to confirm his identity, no solid evidence of his true nature ever emerged. Was it just another operative playing the role, or was it actually Omegon, still alive, still orchestrating the Legion's movements centuries after the heresy? Another strange occurrence involves the Serpent's Coil, a shadowy, near-mythical Alpha Legion stronghold rumored to exist somewhere in the Segmentum Obscurus. According to certain rogue traders and captured agents, this place isn't just a war camp or a hidden fleet, it's something more. A center of intelligence, a place where the Alpha Legion's true leadership resides, constantly weaving their web of influence. If such a place exists, then whoever runs it isn't just another warlord. It would have to be someone with the knowledge, the experience, and the authority to dictate the Legion's overarching strategy. If not Omegon, then who? And then there's the political side of things. The Alpha Legion has been linked to numerous high-profile assassinations and subversions across the Imperium, from the sudden collapse of planetary governors to entire regiments of the Astra Militarum being turned against their own allies. The patterns of these infiltrations suggest something far more calculated than simple chaos-fueled rebellion. If these actions were purely about destruction, they wouldn't be so targeted. Instead, they often appear to be part of a long-term destabilization campaign, weakening the Imperium's structure from within. One of the wildest theories suggests that Omegon, or at least an Alpha Legion mastermind operating in his name, has even infiltrated the Inquisition itself. The idea is insane, but also completely possible. The Inquisition is built on secrecy and paranoia, and many of its agents work alone, free from oversight. If Omegon managed to plant himself within the organization, he could have access to the highest levels of Imperial intelligence, manipulating purges, feeding misinformation, and even directing entire wars without anyone ever realizing they were dancing to his tune. If any of this is true, then it raises a terrifying possibility. Omegon isn't just surviving in the 41st millennium. He's winning. While his fellow Primarchs have either fallen into madness, been trapped in their own personal wars, or disappeared entirely, Omegon may still be out there, watching, waiting, and shaping events in ways that no one can fully comprehend. The Alpha Legion has always been a mystery, but their greatest trick may be that they still have a Primarch guiding them. And if that's the case, then everything we think we know about the current state of the galaxy, every war, every battle, every supposed victory, could just be another step in a plan that began over 10,000 years ago. A plan that only Omegon truly understands. Now here's where things get really insane. What if Omegon isn't working against the Imperium, but for it? What if, instead of being a shadowy puppet master trying to dismantle the Imperium from within, he's actually guiding it, ensuring its survival in ways no one would ever suspect? It sounds ridiculous at first, but the more you look at it, the harder it is to dismiss entirely. For starters, the Alpha Legion was never a conventional traitor legion. They didn't throw in their lot with chaos the way the other legions did. There were no mass pacts with the ruinous powers, no grand declarations of loyalty to the dark gods. Even during the Horus Heresy, their motivations were murky. Some accounts suggest that they were never truly aligned with Horus, that they were playing some deeper game. And then there's the infamous suggestion that the Alpha Legion may have believed they were serving the Emperor all along, that their betrayal was just another layer of the greatest deception in history. If we take that possibility seriously, if we assume that Alpharius and Omegon truly thought they were acting in the best interests of humanity, then what happens after the heresy? If one or both of them survived, would they simply abandon that mission? Or would they double down, embedding themselves even deeper into the mechanisms of imperial power, ensuring that the Imperium stayed on course even as it rotted from within? The idea that Omegon might have found his way into the highest levels of imperial society isn't as far-fetched as it seems. The Imperium is a bureaucratic monstrosity, filled with secretive organizations, hidden power struggles, and entire factions whose true agendas remain unknown even to their own members. The Inquisition, the Officio Assassinorum, the High Lords of Terra, these institutions thrive on secrecy, manipulation, and long-term strategy. Exactly the kind of environment where someone like Omegon would excel. There are theories that he may have infiltrated the Inquisition, rising to a position of power where he could control the Imperium's internal purges and intelligence-gathering operations. If true, this would be a masterstroke. Imagine an Alpha Legion Primarch sitting at the heart of the very organization meant to hunt down threats like him, shaping its missions, feeding it false leads, and directing its purges in ways that only further his own agenda. There are even whispers that some of the most extreme factions of the Inquisition, the ones obsessed with absolute control, secrecy, and manipulation, might actually be his creations, extensions of Alpha Legion doctrine disguised as imperial policy. But it gets wilder. Some believe that Omegon didn't just infiltrate the Inquisition. He may have worked his way all the way to Terra. Think about it. The High Lords of Terra are a rotating cast of shadowy, near untouchable figures, many of whom operate under assumed identities, hidden from the wider Imperium. Who's to say that one of them, at some point in the last 10,000 years, wasn't actually Omegon? What if he positioned himself as a decision-maker at the highest level, ensuring that key policies, military movements, and purges aligned with his own vision? The High Lords are notorious for their infighting and secrecy. But what if one of them wasn't just playing the political game, What if one of them was playing the long game? And then there's the most heretical theory of all. The idea that Omegon never truly turned against the Emperor in the first place. Some believe that he never saw himself as a traitor, that everything he did, even his apparent betrayal, was in service of a greater cause. If that's true, then what if he's still working toward that cause? What if, even now, he's positioning the Imperium for a future war that no one else sees coming? There's even speculation that Omegon may have, at some point, come into direct contact with the Emperor's shattered form on the Golden Throne. That's pure conspiracy at this point. There's no solid evidence, but it's a compelling idea. If the Emperor could still communicate in some way, wouldn't someone like Omegon be the perfect person to receive those orders? A master of secrecy, someone who could execute an agenda without anyone ever knowing he was doing it? The biggest problem with all these theories, of course, is that there's no definitive proof. But then again, that's exactly what you'd expect if Omegon was secretly working within the Imperium. If there was proof, it would mean he failed. And failing isn't something the Alpha Legion does. If Omegon is still alive, and if he's anywhere near the halls of power on Terra, then it means that every single thing we think we know about the Imperium's leadership, its wars, its decisions, all of it, could be part of a plan that's been unfolding for 10,000 years. A plan that no one but Omegon truly understands. If there's one thing that has remained consistent about the Alpha Legion, it's that their true allegiance has never been clear. Unlike the other traitor legions, who openly pledged themselves to chaos, the Alpha Legion never fully embraced the ruinous powers. Even after the Horus Heresy, they didn't fall into the usual pattern of warbands ruled by demon princes, nor did they carve out their own little empires in the Eye of Terror like the Black Legion or the Word-Bearers. Instead, they stayed in the shadows, manipulating, infiltrating, and playing both sides against each other. But what if Omegon, assuming he survived, took things even further? What if he isn't just playing games with the Imperium, but with chaos itself? One of the most intriguing theories out there is that Omegon may have turned chaos into just another tool for his own purposes. He wouldn't be the first to attempt this. Plenty of warlords, psychers, and even some of his own traitorous brothers believed they could control the dark gods. But the difference with Omegon is that he wouldn't worship them. He wouldn't make bargains the way the Thousand Sons did with Tzeentch, nor would he throw himself into mindless bloodshed like Angron and the World Eaters. If Omegon engaged with chaos, it would be on his terms, not as a servant, but as a manipulator. There have been instances where Alpha Legion forces have worked alongside Chaos warbands, but never in a way that suggests full loyalty. Instead, they always seem to be using them as disposable assets, pushing them into certain battles, sabotaging them from within, or abandoning them when the time was right. This raises a fascinating possibility. Could Omegon have infiltrated not just the Imperium, but Chaos itself? Could he have embedded agents within the highest ranks of Chaos warlords, guiding their movements just as he might have done with Imperial forces? Some fans speculate that the reason the Alpha Legion hasn't collapsed into a standard Chaos warband is precisely because Omegon, or someone acting on his doctrine, has been actively preventing it. The Legion doesn't have a clear spiritual alignment, and there's a reason why you don't see Alpha Legionnaires regularly falling to daemonhood or becoming slaves to the dark gods. It's almost as if someone has been deliberately keeping the Legion from descending into chaos worship, ensuring that they remain focused on their original mission, whatever that may be. But here's where things get really unsettling. What if Omegon isn't just avoiding chaos? What if he's weaponizing it? The notion that he could be deliberately guiding certain chaos factions, steering their influence toward specific goals, is terrifying. Chaos is, by its nature, unpredictable. But what if it wasn't? What if certain black crusades, certain uprisings, certain demonic incursions weren't just random explosions of warp-born madness, but were nudged into existence by a mind that knew exactly how to manipulate them? If that's the case, then every major chaos invasion in the last 10,000 years could have been orchestrated not by Abaddon, not by the dark gods, but by someone hiding behind the curtain, making sure that these wars happened at exactly the right time, in exactly the right place. And then there's the most extreme theory, the idea that Omegon might have actually become something more than just a Primarch. While there's no concrete evidence that he ever gave himself over to chaos, there's always the possibility that, in his search for knowledge and power, he found something beyond his control. If he spent centuries studying the warp, manipulating cults, and bending chaos to his will, did he eventually cross the line? Did he become something more than human? Some believe that if Omegon is still alive, he might not even be entirely mortal anymore. There's also the question of what his endgame is. If he is playing both sides, if he is manipulating both the Imperium and chaos, then to what purpose? Is he trying to orchestrate a controlled collapse of both factions? Is he setting the stage for something beyond the current war? Some have even suggested that he might be playing the longest game of all, positioning himself as the one true power in the galaxy, neither imperial nor chaotic, but something else entirely. If that's the case, then the most terrifying thought isn't that Omegon is still alive. It's that he might be winning. If Omegon is still alive, then the real question isn't just where he is. It's what he's planning. Because someone like him doesn't just survive for 10,000 years without a reason. He doesn't just linger in the shadows for the sake of survival. If he's out there, then every move he's made, every manipulation, every whisper in the dark, has been leading to something. And whatever that something is, it's bigger than just the Alpha Legion. One of the most obvious theories is that he's working toward the full restoration of the Alpha Legion, but not in the way most people expect. The Alpha Legion never really died. It fractured, it scattered, it burrowed into the fabric of the galaxy. But if Omegon wanted to, he could reassemble the pieces. The question is, why would he? If he wanted a unified legion, he could have restructured it at any point. Instead, the Alpha Legion has remained decentralized, an unseen force operating on a scale no one can fully grasp. Maybe that was the whole point. Maybe Omegon doesn't need a traditional legion at all. Maybe he has already won the war in a way that none of the other Primarchs ever could, by making himself irrelevant. If the Alpha Legion no longer needs him, if its operatives move according to a doctrine so deeply ingrained that leadership itself is unnecessary, then Omegon has created something more permanent than any empire. A system that can't be stopped. But what if his goals are bigger than the Alpha Legion? What if he's playing for something beyond simple Legion loyalty? There are theories that he could be setting the stage for a full-scale reset of the Imperium. Not an invasion, not a war, but something far more insidious. The Imperium in its current state is unsustainable. It's a bloated corpse running on inertia, a vast bureaucracy so paranoid and self-destructive that it does more damage to itself than its enemies ever could. And Omegon, if he's truly as brilliant as we think, knows this. Maybe he isn't trying to destroy the Imperium, maybe he's trying to fix it. But the only way to fix something that broken is to break it even further first. Some believe he could be orchestrating a slow-motion coup, positioning key figures within the Imperium, weakening certain factions, and waiting for the perfect moment to pull the trigger. He wouldn't do it with armies. He wouldn't do it with daemons or fleets. He would do it with ideas, with corruption, with small, imperceptible shifts that would seem like natural progressions until it was too late to reverse them. If Omegon's plan is to overthrow the Imperium, it won't happen in a single night of rebellion. It will happen over centuries, one perfectly calculated step at a time. Then there's the other possibility, the one that's even more terrifying. What if Omegon isn't trying to save the Imperium or the Alpha Legion? What if his goal is something completely alien, something we haven't even considered? Maybe he's seen a future that no one else has, a future where neither the Imperium nor chaos wins, where both are just stepping stones towards something else. Maybe he's looking at the grander picture, something that not even the Emperor could have predicted. Could he be trying to create a third power in the galaxy? A faction that isn't bound to the dogma of the Imperium or the madness of chaos? If that's true, then everything we think we know about the galactic conflict is flawed. The long war between the Imperium and chaos has been going on for 10,000 years, and no one has truly won. The balance has shifted back and forth, but at the end of the day, the war is still happening. What if Omegon's goal is to break that cycle? To introduce something new? Something that neither side could predict or counter? Some fans believe that if he has been playing this long game, then whatever he's waiting for hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's the rise of the Primaris Space Marines. Maybe it's the return of Roboute Guilliman. Maybe it's something even more obscure, something buried so deep in the galaxy's history that only he has the full picture. If Omegon is alive, then his plan is still unfolding. And if his plan is still unfolding, then everything, every war, every alliance, every seemingly random event, might just be another step toward his final goal. The most unsettling part? We might not even know when he succeeds. If he's as good as we think, then his victory wouldn't be something obvious. It wouldn't be a moment where the galaxy suddenly realizes it has been played. It would be something subtle, something quiet, something that happens in the background until one day, the entire balance of power has shifted and no one even realizes how it happened. If Omegon is alive, then the galaxy isn't just at war. It's playing a game that only he understands. And by the time anyone figures out what the rules are, it might already be over. If Omegon is still alive, then the galaxy is playing a game where no one even knows the pieces on the board. Except him. The Imperium is changing, chaos is evolving, and new players are stepping onto the stage, each with their own grand ambitions. The rise of Primaris Space Marines, the return of Roboute Guilliman, Abaddon's renewed Black Crusades, the ever-growing power of the Inquisition. These aren't just random events. They're seismic shifts in the status quo, the kind of changes that someone like Omegon would either have anticipated or have caused. Because if he's still manipulating the galaxy, then how do we know which of these developments are his doing? The Primaris Project is one of the most radical transformations the Imperium has seen in 10,000 years. Guilliman's return and the Indomitus Crusade have unleashed a new breed of Space Marines, faster, stronger, and designed to succeed where their predecessors struggled. But here's the thing, where there is change, there is opportunity. If Omegon still has influence over the Alpha Legion, then infiltration of the Primaris ranks would be inevitable. The entire idea of the Legion is built around subversion, about planting agents where no one expects them. And what better place to do that than inside the ranks of the Imperium's newest, most secure force? Think about it. Primaris recruits are drawn from all over the Imperium, from a process that spans thousands of worlds, with gene-forging operations happening on a scale never seen before. The chances of Alpha Legion operatives slipping into that system? Astronomically high. If Omegon wanted to shape the future of the Imperium, embedding his agents within the Primaris forces would be the perfect way to do it. He wouldn't even need an army, just a handful of key figures, positioned in the right places, feeding false intelligence, subtly guiding missions, ensuring that the Primaris aren't loyal so much as they are useful. Then there's Abaddon. The so-called War Master of Chaos has been leading the Black Legion for centuries, launching Black Crusade after Black Crusade, all in an effort to bring about the final destruction of the Imperium. But what if Abaddon is playing directly into Omegon's hands? The Alpha Legion's doctrine has always been about manipulation, about pushing enemies to act in ways that benefit the Legion's own goals. Abaddon's crusades have done more to destabilize the Imperium than any other force in the last few millennia. But they've also had another effect. They've forced the Imperium to evolve. If Omegon is still alive, then maybe he never cared about who won between the Imperium and Chaos. Maybe he's just been ensuring that neither side collapses completely, that both are pushed to the brink, forever locked in conflict, forever reacting to threats they don't fully understand. And let's not forget the Inquisition. If there's anyone who would be hunting for signs of Omegon's survival, it's them. The Inquisition is the ultimate machine of paranoia, a force dedicated to rooting out hidden threats. And yet, for 10,000 years, they've never been able to pin down the Alpha Legion. They purge cults, expose infiltrators, but they never eradicate the problem. What if that's by design? What if some Inquisitors are Alpha Legion, moving behind the mask of the Imperium's secret police, ensuring that the Legion's agents are always a step ahead? There's even a theory that Omegon has directly influenced the Inquisition's structure, subtly guiding certain radical factions to push the Imperium in directions that align with his goals. The rise of the Inquisition's more extreme elements, those who advocate for total control, absolute surveillance, and purging even the idea of rebellion, these could all be the fingerprints of an unseen hand, shaping the Imperium into something that, in the long run, serves his vision, not the Emperor's. And then there's Guilliman, the only active loyalist Primarch, the only one who has the authority to reshape the Imperium from the top down. Guilliman's return was supposed to be a turning point, the moment when the Imperium finally had competent leadership again. But has it actually stopped its slow decline? Or has Guilliman simply become another piece on the board, another variable that Omegon has already accounted for? Some fans believe that if Omegon is still alive, then Guilliman's return was something he wanted to happen. The Imperium was stagnating, decaying under its own weight. Guilliman's reforms may seem like a restoration of order, but in reality, they could be accelerating the kind of large-scale change that Omegon has been preparing for centuries. A weakened Imperium is predictable, but an Imperium that is restructuring itself, that is a force that can be guided, nudged into new forms, steered toward a future that even Guilliman himself doesn't fully understand. If Omegon is out there, then he isn't just another warlord lurking in the shadows. He's the architect of a galaxy where no one, not Guilliman, not Abaddon, not even the Inquisition, knows who's really in control. And if his plan is still unfolding, then we're not just looking at a battle between the Imperium and chaos. We're looking at something much bigger. Something we might not even recognize until it's too late. So after all of this, after unraveling the endless layers of deception, the conflicting accounts, the mind-bending theories, what do we actually know about Omegon? The answer is both frustrating and exhilarating. Almost nothing. And yet, that nothing is filled with implications, half-truths, and possibilities that stretch far beyond what we can confirm. That is the essence of the Alpha Legion. And that is why Omegon, whether alive or dead, is one of the most dangerous figures in Warhammer 40k. We know that Alpharius and Omegon were the most enigmatic of the Primarchs. We know that at least one of them died, maybe both. Maybe neither. We know that the Alpha Legion did not crumble after the heresy like the other traitor legions did. Instead, it evolved, fragmented, and yet somehow remained cohesive, operating across the galaxy with a level of precision and secrecy that suggests someone has been guiding it. Could that be Omegon? It's impossible to say for certain, but the fact that the Legion still functions with such eerie consistency, still carries out operations that don't seem to align with pure chaos or outright imperial destruction, suggests that a deeper plan is still in motion. We also know that the Alpha Legion is still playing the long game. While the Black Legion launches grand crusades and the World Eaters drown the stars in blood, the Alpha Legion operates like a slow creeping infection. The kind you don't notice until it's too late. If Omegon is alive, then this is his masterpiece. A war that isn't fought with bolters and daemons, but with whispers, manipulation, and deception so absolute that no one even realizes they're part of it. The biggest question that remains unanswered is what he wants. If he is alive, is he trying to destroy the Imperium, or is he secretly protecting it? Has he abandoned his legion, or is he still commanding it from the shadows? Is he playing both sides, or is he playing a third game entirely? One that neither the Imperium nor Chaos understands. And the most terrifying possibility of all, what if he already won, and we just don't know it yet? The nature of the Alpha Legion means that we may never get a clear answer. If Omegon is still alive, then finding him, confirming his existence, would mean that he has already failed. The Alpha Legion doesn't make mistakes like that. If his plan is still unfolding, then we won't see it coming until it's already too late. And even if we do think we've uncovered the truth, how would we ever be sure? If we were given definitive proof of his death, would we believe it? If someone stepped forward claiming to be him, could we trust it? Or would it just be another layer of the grand illusion, another step in a plan we aren't even aware of? In the end, the real answer to the question, is the last Alpharius still manipulating the galaxy, isn't a simple yes or no. The real answer is it doesn't matter. Because the moment you start questioning the truth, the moment you start doubting what's real and what's deception, that's when the Alpha Legion has already won. Maybe that's Omegon's greatest trick. Not just surviving, not just controlling events from the shadows, but ensuring that even the idea of his existence is enough to alter the course of the galaxy. And that, more than anything else, is why the Alpha Legion remains the most dangerous force in the Imperium. Because whether or not Omegon is still alive, whether or not he is pulling the strings, his legacy, the uncertainty, the paranoia, the deception, is. And as long as that continues, as long as no one can ever be truly sure if they are fighting against the Alpha Legion or for them, then his work is still being done. So, the final question isn't where Omegon is. The final question is how many moves ahead he still is. And if you think you have the answer, then you've already been deceived.